Hey, seventh graders, welcome back. We're working on section 11.2 today, which is titled Americans Move Westward. We've already we looked at 11.1, which was the Industrial Revolution. Now we're going to look at Americans continuing their push westward across the continent. And just a reminder again that attached to your Schoology page, along with this video lecture, is also going to be your Quizlet vocab words for 11.2. Americans Move Westward. You've got all your terms there in the Quizlet link, and you're also going to see a couple of good videos that I've chosen for this lesson. Make sure you watch this video lecture first, and then you can watch the supporting videos when you're done, and then you can work on your Quizlet at that point as well. So let's look at vocab first for chapter 11, section 2. This is not all-inclusive. There are additional words in your deck, but some of the words that we'll be looking at in this reading are flatboat, a barge used for river travel. A flatboat's going to be used for rivers that are largely shallow. Toll is money charged to use a bridge or a road. A turnpike is a toll road, which people pay a toll, and it was called a turnpike because there was usually a pole or a pike that was lifted back and forth as wagons would come up to the pike. And when the pole was lifted and when the pike was lifted, wagons could then go through. And finally, the word canal. A canal is a waterway built by people that allows boats to cross through a stretch of land. We're going to talk about specifically in this lesson the Erie Canal, which was built in New York State starting in 1817. It was built across upstate New York from the Hudson River north of Albany all the way out to Buffalo. So across really the entire state, almost 300 miles, a little bit longer than 300 miles. Those four vocab words, in addition to the others, can be found on your 11.2 deck on Quizlet, or the 11.2 deck, which is linked on your Schoology page. At our reading first on chapter 11, section 2. Again, the title, Americans Moving Westward. In the early 1800s, many people began moving west to the land between the Appalachian Mountains and the Mississippi River. You'll remember from chapter 10, the land west of the Mississippi River up to the Rocky Mountains will be purchased by the United States with the Louisiana Purchase, which will happen in the presidency of Thomas Jefferson. Well, American settlers are going to begin moving west over the Appalachians to settle that territory. Settlers took several routes. Some traveled the Great Wagon Road across Pennsylvania. Others followed the Wilderness Road into Kentucky. Some went west to Pittsburgh. Then they took flatboats down the Ohio River into Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois. Some northern pioneers traveled across New York State into Ohio, and southern pioneers followed trails into Alabama and Mississippi. One of the things that we're going to be looking at specifically in this lesson, and especially in the video links that I'll be providing with 11-2, are improvements in transportation. So improvements in transportation are going to come rather rapidly in the early part of the 19th century, in the period that we're talking about after the period of Thomas Jefferson's presidency. Settlers traveling west needed better roads. Roads were a mess. Roads in the wintertime would become wet. They would become filled with potholes. When we talk about roads, we're really not talking roads like today. We're talking roads were pretty much paths established by wagons. And roads and those type of wagon roads became very, very dangerous to travel, especially during wet weather or during spring thaws. So settlers traveling west needed better roads. To pay for road constructions, road builders collected tolls. And these toll roads were called turnpikes. In 1806, the U.S. Congress set aside money for the very first national road leading from Cumberland, Maryland to Wheeling in Western Virginia. The national road would later become extended to the great state of Illinois. And what's going to be rather amazing, as this road is being built, as workers are on the job site building this national road, towns are going to start to spring up on both the northern sides and the southern sides of the roadway. Northern and southern sides of the roadway as the national road is being built. We're also going to see improvements on water travel. Water travel is going to become cheaper, faster, and more comfortable than road travel. In 1807, a man named Robert Fulton will launch a successful steamboat that he will call the Clermont. And it set new records in travel time. Steamboats began to carry people and goods quickly and cheaply. Americans also began to build canals. We talked earlier in the marking period about the term infrastructure. Infrastructure is the system of roads, bridges, tunnels, and canals that a society has. Well, we're going to also see the beginning of the canal infrastructure starting in New York in 1817. The Erie Canal is going to begin being built, and it's going to let Western farmers from Western portions of New York and Pennsylvania, it's going to allow them to ship their goods to New York City. Steamboats and canals eventually will link Western farmers with Eastern cities, making trade and making commerce much more possible over long distances between areas on the frontier in Western New York and Pennsylvania and Ohio, and allowing these merchants and sales reps to get their materials, to get their goods via canal to New York City, where they could explode and sell their goods really all over the United States and indeed all over the world eventually. Looking at the diagram at the bottom half of the page, we've got a diagram titled Transportation in the U.S. from 1790 to 1830. And basically, this diagram is going to highlight what Americans needed to do to solve the problem of difficult travel as more and more Americans began to move west. The problems were difficult travel moving west, and settlers in the West needed ways to transport goods to Eastern marketplaces. And the solution that they're going to come up with during the span of this 40-year period is new and improved methods of transportation. And three of those are listed here. We're going to see better roadways. We're going to see the emergence of canals. And we're also going to see, as we read about the Clermont and Robert Fulton, we're going to see the advent or the creation of steamboats. Later in this chapter, we'll talk about railroads. But for right now, we're looking at three primary improvements. We're talking about better roads, improved roadways, and there's going to be some interesting things in the videos that I've linked so you can see details on improved roads. You'll see the canals and you'll see steamboats, or all improvements to transportation in this 40-year period from 1790 to 1830. The reading and the diagram we just looked at will help you answer the following two questions. What were the advantages of travel by water? And the second question, referring to the diagram, which three new forms of transportation did Americans develop in the early 1800s? Don't forget, there are some video links. Attached to 11-2 on your Schoology page, along with your Quizlet vocab. Make sure you're studying your vocab as well. I hope you guys are safe. I hope you guys are staying healthy, and I hope you're spending some time with your family. And look forward to seeing you all back in school real soon.